It had a human face. It was the middle of autumn and all the trees were bare as we drove down the wooded area of the highway. A peaceful drive like every year when my wife Mandy and I would head east from New Jersey to see her parents in the next state over. We would come across car accidents and the occasional poor animal that didn't have the mind of caution of the road. Few times I had to do what was right and put the poor things out of their pain and suffering. Don't understand why people would just leave them like that, saddening and cruel, but I did what I had to do. This one particular trip, which was last year, just happened to be one of the most memorable times. Not because of visiting my wife's parents, but what we encountered on the way there is what scarred us. Driving while the sun had begun to set, radio blasting alternative rock while Mandy had her feet on the dashboard relaxing and playing some mediocre game on her phone. The road seemed more desolated of any other cars, which was just how I liked it. The setting was just so perfect and relaxing with being able to see the road ahead perfectly. As we drove I noticed something off in the distance and I quickly turned the radio down and reached to my right to tap Mandy on the shoulder as I came to a slow stop. She looked my way as I pointed ahead and she seen what I had seen. She sighed, not another one, and I looked back at her and rested my head on the steering wheel. Yep. She knew what I was going to do, so she got out of the car as I popped the trunk to get a blunt object out of the trunk. I could see her slowly approaching the poor animal as I peeked around the back and pulled out a tire iron. As I closed the trunk and came around the side of the car, I suddenly heard her gasp and run back toward the side of the car with her hands cupped over her mouth. James, that's not an animal. Just as I was passing her and could see just how visibly shaken she was. What are you talking about? I slowly approached the said animal and I came to a dead stop in my steps to what I was looking at and I was utterly speechless. I took one step forward as I leaned in and could see this thing had human-like fingers that turned into a skinny form of some kind of canine leg. It laid on its side and could see what looked like the body of a dog. The hind legs stretched out from the back as if it was dragging itself on the road, followed by a trail of its own blood. I began to examine it at a slight distance. I put my foot on it and that's when it started to move and it turned its head outward. This creature or thing had the head of a woman. The face was heavily deformed and looked as if it was in the middle of some kind of transformation. The other front leg of it had a fully grown hand of a human, and that's when it turned its focus towards me, opening its eye which had hair growing around the eyelids but the nose and mouth of a woman. It began to cough a weak cough and I swear it started to smile even as I started to back away. The teeth of it was also very much human-like. I noticed the long hair coming off from the back of its head and could see it started to drag itself across the road even as it gasped for air. My wife Mandy began tugging at my arm and took me back to the driver's side door as she went around and got into the passenger side. I turned on the car and shined the lights right on it and we sat there watching this thing drag itself into the bushes. We were so much in shock that I almost had forgotten I was in the driver's seat and had to snap myself out of it, and we drove off. For nearly 2 miles we never said a word to each other. Mandy just sobbed and couldn't believe what we seen, and I was pretty much in denial myself. How could we even tell this to someone, and how would they even begin to believe what we saw? The only explanation I ever came up with was that it might have been a skinwalker? Maybe one that got hit by a car and was trying to change? I don't know, but this was one for the books that would have never been read, cause even so, I am still in denial about it, and so is Mandy. Some days I wonder if it's still out there, but that bloody smile, human face with body of a canine still haunts my dreams, and I don't think it's going to leave me anytime soon.